So what's next for the Flyers? We'll take a look back at that game real fast with Kevin Durso and then look ahead because obviously you're thinking to yourself, this was a team that made the playoffs. They probably wouldn't have been the 1 seed if the season played out. But now what's next for this team moving forward? How do they make that next jump? Let's bring Kevin Durso, Flyers Insider, 97.3 ESPN.com, at Kevin_Durso. And he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And Kevin, when you look back to Saturday night, was there something that stands out as, man, this was really disappointing that this didn't stand up or step up or that didn't stand up? Or was it just what Brode said, that they just looked out of gas?
Yeah, it's what Brode said. I think they were just out of gas at this point in time. You look at the 2 games prior to that, both requiring overtime, the amount of extra play that it takes to get to that point. They played more than half of another game in Game 6 just to force the Game 7. So I think that not only by the time they got that Game 7 underway, but once they gave up the first one and then the second one in pretty short order afterwards, I think that from that point on, that was a team running on empty that had emptied the tank in Game 6 and didn't have anything left for the Islanders in Game 7, and it was as simple as that. So, credit the Islanders for finding that gear that they needed to win Game 7, and obviously, the Flyers poured everything they had into those 2 games to make it exciting, to get everybody really hyped up for a Game 7, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Yep. And after the game, you take a listen to some of the things that Alain Vigneault said. Anything stand out to you? Did he seem to, I don't want to say target, but did he insinuate that he wasn't happy with his top guys?
I think he was just not happy with the result in general. I think it goes across the board. It wasn't just the top guys. It was just the result in general. And I think that, as much as it is, I think with some reflection, it was that this team was out of gas and didn't have anything left for them. It nonetheless, it doesn't take the sting away immediately after the game's over that you had a shot to win 1 game and move on to the conference finals, and you didn't do it. And the goal is to take those steps progressively. Obviously that not a lot of people thought that the Flyers would be in a Game 7 of the second round, the first year with Alain Vigneault as head coach and the first full year with Chuck Fletcher and with so many young guys on the roster. But at the same time, you get to that point and you wanted to see them take that step. You wanted to see somebody step up and be that guy who took over the game, and it's never there. And it really wasn't there throughout the series, quite honestly. It took everybody on the team to win the 3 games. They did all in overtime, obviously. And I just got the sense, both from Alain Vigneault and Carter Hart, too, because they're 2 guys who you could noticeably tell that there was just something in their mind that this is going to be motivation for next year. It's going to be motivation moving forward because they felt like they could be better than what they were. For Carter Hart to shoulder it like that, it doesn't fall on him. He basically carried them through that series. And yet for him to sit there and basically flat out with a little bit of anger in his voice, tell you how much it sucks that the season's over, it said a lot, how motivated he'll be. And Alain Vigneault too, because that's the one thing that he's got left in his coaching career that he hasn't done is win a Stanley Cup. And that's the goal for him as well. So I think that you have got some motivation moving forward. There's going to be a chip on their shoulder going into the next year because they're going to want to see much more than what they got out of this year.
I'm kind of torn because when I look at some of these young guns like Farabee, Hart, Konechny, Lawton, Sanheim, Myers, it's like, okay, this is a great experience. Even though some of them struggled, I still think it's a great experience to go up against playoff hockey teams. But then you look at the veteran side, and you really can't go with, Claude Giroux got experience, or Couturier, Voracek, they got experience. Those were the ones that we need to step up, and I don't know how we assess what they do and what the Flyers do moving forward, because you can't be satisfied with those type of players just gaining experience in that type of series.
No, you can't. And I think one of the biggest things for me, and I had told you guys this a little bit last week when it was 3-1 in the series, before the 2 games that they did win to force the Game 7. The Islanders come out and they've got a guy like Matthew Barzal, and when the puck's on his stick and he's skating circles around you, you can just get the sense that he's the guy who takes over the entire shift right there. And the Flyers don't have that guy. As much as we want to pinpoint Sean Couturier as a guy who continues to rise, might be an elite 2-way center. He's up for the Selke that'll be announced in 2 days. And nonetheless, he's not that takeover guy. We wanted to see Travis Konechny step up and be the goal scorer he was in the regular season in the playoffs, and he didn't score in 16 games. I think that when it comes to guys like Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek, 2 guys who have been here for the long haul, it's got to stop. I think that one of the biggest things that's got to change for these guys is that we keep focusing on them for a valid reason. They're on the top line, so they get the most ice time. and they're supposed to be the guys who step up in that situation. But I don't think they are those guys anymore. You can't rely on them to be the guy to take over the game. And as long as they're still the core and still playing in the most significant roles, not just because they get the most ice time, but because they make the most money, things like that, then you're going to get this kind of response. Like, that's the way you're going to feel about those guys, is that there's always something more to be desired from them. Whereas if the role was reduced with the current trajectory of their careers, they're on the back nine of the career at this point. You have to start to see other guys step up to become the go-tos and not so rely so heavily on Claude Giroux to be a goal scorer or Jake Voracek to be a goal scorer, because it's just, we've been on this ride before. It's just not going to happen that way. They need to fit into the roles that are much more custom for them at this stage of their careers and not be the guy that you look at to be the most production. Simple as that.
So with that being said, do you anticipate maybe some sort of moves this offseason when it comes to the veteran? Now, I know everyone screams about Claude Giroux, but he has a no-trade clause, and I don't think he's really going anywhere. But can you move on from a Voracek? Can Chuck Fletcher maybe make a big-time trade or maybe go after someone in free agency? I know they're missing a goal scorer, and the name that comes to my head sometimes, I know he's been maybe underwhelming in Winnipeg, but would a Patrick Laine help out? Like, they definitely need someone who can actually put the puck in the net at the same time.
Yeah, that's what they need. They need a guy who absolutely, when he steps on the ice, the thing you're thinking of is a goal is being scored. And Barzal's been that guy for the Islanders. And you look at Tampa and you see Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, and you think that way with them. And there's other teams around the division that bring the same thing, and around the conference. Boston's got Pasternak, and for even the other teams, even as they're increasing in age, you still feel that way when Ovechkin steps on the ice for Washington, or you feel that way when Crosby's on the ice for Pittsburgh. It doesn't change that, because they're that kind of dynamic player that makes teams shake in their boots when they come on the ice, because they don't want to see them for as much as they do, because they're such a threat. That's what the Flyers really need. It's hard to get. You have to sometimes get lucky to find one like that. I mean, you think about the way that the Lightning have formed their team. It's a lot of guys who were drafted outside the first round, some undrafted free agents at times, and they mold them into players that become really talented, high potential, and really know how to get it done. And that's why it feels like their time is now. And the Islanders have done a lot of the same things, where these are a lot of players that were brought in and molded with the team over the years, not guys who were just brought in through trades or free agency. I don't know if you're going to see many trades. I definitely don't think you're going to see trades that involve Claude Giroux or Jake Voracek or anything like that. I do think there's a sense that they want to move on from some of the other contracts, though. Like, James Van Riemsdyk comes to mind. He's a guy who was in and out of the lineup and obviously carries a huge cap hit. It's going to be tough to move. I think that what you're going to have to see, especially with a flat cap over the course of the offseason, you're going to have to see some really creative things happen. And I think that means you're going to have to think really long and hard, if you're Chuck Fletcher, about where you want to go if you were to make any form of a trade. And in saying that, I mean the willingness to move a prospect or to move a draft pick or move something that would help your future, and trying to get rid of something in the present that can help you free up some cap space to address some of the other needs. But it's going to be really tough to do anything just straightforward in free agency because of the way the cap is structured. So I think you're going to have to see some really creative things happen for a lot to change for a lot of teams out there, not just the Flyers.
Yeah, Kevin Durso covers the Flyers. He's with us here at the Boardwalk on the Hotline. It's hard to, it was, I'm not saying a disappointing season. It was obviously a very successful year. I think they exceeded expectations. I would say the disappointment would be if you're coming back with Claude Giroux, Jake Voracek, Sean Couturier, and that crew again, do your expectations, are they better for next year if you bring back the same core? It was almost like when you had, Wayne Simmons was a part of it, and it was like, hey, we keep bringing back this same group of four guys. I know Konechny's young, and I know you've got some other younger players, but your core guys are still, it sounds like, going to be back next year. So is there room for growth? It seems that to think that they could take a big leap if that's still your core, it seems to be a little far-fetched, no?
Yes and no, and like I said, I think as long as you continue to put those guys in the top roles, then that's the way you're going to think about it. You're going to look at the same guys and go, well, we know what they provide, so how can it get any better? You need to see Travis Konechny at 23 years old now take the leap and be in the spot that Claude Giroux's in and play more minutes and be more productive. You know what you're going to get from Claude Giroux every year now. You know what you're going to get from Jake Voracek, and you'd like to see Sean Couturier continue to progress upward or at least level off at what he's been in the last 3-4 years, because that's formed some sort of consistency. But you need the other ones to continue to grow, and who knows, maybe if you can insert more of these guys, it is a valuable, like Broads was saying, it is a valuable experience for a 20-year-old Joel Farabee to get into the playoffs, play a few games, have some production, and take that and try to grow next year to be even better. You're going to hopefully see Nolan Patrick back. You're going to hopefully see more of a role for Morgan Frost, and hopefully you're going to see Oscar Lindblom get back to his form as well. It was just, as miraculous as it was for him to even appear in those last 2 games, you hope that now he takes that, knowing that he was able to make the return, and assuming his health stays the way it has been and that in the way it was that will allow him to even come back, he can get back to form as well. And then defensively, same thing. You saw steps from Provorov, from Phil Myers, from Travis Sanheim, these guys who you need to continue to grow and be better. And now I think you just need to focus on putting guys around them who fill that veteran need. Matt Niskanen was really good for Ivan Provorov, and maybe he can be good lower in the lineup if you can add somebody else who can fill the same role at a good cost. Or you add another forward who gives you some of that, like we said, maybe you find a way to work around some of those contracts and get a forward in here who has more of a scoring ability and adds to that as well. But those are things that are hard to find, especially with not a lot of money floating around. So realistically, I think the expectations rely on the younger guys not only continuing to grow, but assuming some of the more major roles, because as long as you keep guys like Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek at the very top, knowing what to expect from them, then it kind of keeps the progression going into a plateau, and you're just going to continue to see the same thing. It's why it was constantly the borderline playoff appearances and first-round exits for all those years. I think by this point, you've stretched them as far as they'll go. You need to see other guys assume bigger roles and see if that takes you to a little bit of a next level, and see if that helps you to address the other needs of this team, because can't just sit on Giroux and Voracek any longer. It just can't.
Now that Justin Braun is a UFA, would you think that they bring him back, or would they go down another road? They did give up a second and a third round pick, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little underwhelmed with what he brought to the table here all season long.
Yeah, looking at some of the expiring contracts on the team early on, there's really only 2 guys that I'm really inquiring about that are unrestricted free agents at this point. The restricted free agents, I think Phil Myers needs a new contract. Nick Aube-Kubel needs a new contract. Nolan Patrick needs a new contract. And these are guys I think you just have to work out internally because they are still under your control. As for the unrestricted free agents, there's only 2 that I'm looking at who I would really consider bringing back. One of them, I think you have to at least look into seeing what Brian Elliott's going to ask as a backup for Carter Hart, because I think he did a good job this year. He gave you a chance to win when he played in the playoffs as well, and that's all you can ask from your backup. So I think that having him around continues to give you that stability and goal. And I'd look into Tyler Pitlick. I don't know, if he wants a significant raise, then I think you move on from him because of the fact that there's a lot of guys out there in the league that can fill the role that he did. But if he's willing to take the similar contract and play, again, like another 1-year, $1 million contract, then I'm interested in that. And I think that that's something the Flyers would be interested in as well. But the others, you've seen the last of Nate Thompson. You've seen the last of Derek Grant, in my opinion. And I think you've seen the last of Justin Braun as well. I think that those are guys that they're just going to move on from and either fill that gap internally or go out there and just see what's floating out there in free agency. But I don't think that those guys are coming back.
All right. Obviously, we don't know what next season's going to bring. We don't even know when it's going to start. We have no idea. Have you even began to look at the possibility of free agents that could be out there that are attractive?
Looking around, there's not an awful lot, to be honest. I mean, in hindsight, I look at the James Enrique contract from years ago, and I think that that's a year where maybe the Flyers were better just sitting out. I think Ron Hextall made a signing just to try to make some noise and get a guy in, and it was a guy who everybody was familiar with already. It wasn't like it was some new guy from out there in the league that was generating noise as a free agent. This is a guy who had already played in the organization, so it kind of felt like you knew what you were getting to an extent, and it was a guy who had production playing in a lesser role for Toronto all those years. I think that's a year where you maybe should have just sat it out and maybe seen what you could have gotten internally from guys if you would have promoted them, instead of giving a contract like that out where you're tying up $7 million of your cap space for the next 5 years. It just didn't make a lot of sense. I wonder if that's kind of the same way the free agency is this year. With the flat cap, it's going to be so complicated for so many teams. It's not a great year to be a free agent. And unless you're willing to take a significant pay cut possibly from what you expected in free agency, then it's not going to be an attractive free agency. I don't think it's going to be the frenzy it normally is. So there's not a lot out there, and especially not a lot out there in terms of pure goal scorers. About the closest thing that's out there is Mike Hoffman's a free agent for Florida, but again, he's more on the aging side and is not necessarily a player that I think you want to tie yourself to for several years. I think that would be more of a Band-Aid and not a long-term fix. So there's not a whole lot out there, and it might just be best to either explore the trade market or look internally.
Well, it's the first offseason in my lifetime, I think, that we hadn't asked about the goaltending because we know that that's all settled, but a lot of other questions. For more, go to 973ESPN.com. Follow Kevin Durso on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. And, of course, he did a great job all season long during the pause and then on the comeback here. He has a great piece up now, a Flyers season of great progress, meeting a future of uncertainty. Go check that out now at 973ESPN.com. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thank you so much, Kevin. Great job this year.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's almost sad that we're not going to be catching up with Durso for a while, it would seem.